Hi, I'm Kristen Goodwin on this episode of the Fox News Rundown. With less than 3 weeks until Election Day and millions of Americans already casting their ballots, President Trump and Democratic presidential nominee Joe Biden are hitting key battleground states, courting voters in Pennsylvania and Florida. Marc Lotter, Director of Strategic Communications for the Trump campaign, discusses President Trump's return to the campaign trail, the ongoing Supreme Court confirmation hearings, and discussion over the fate of the Affordable Care Act. And in most states across the U.S., the number of coronavirus cases continues to rise. Fox News senior meteorologist Janice Dean opens up about losing her in-laws to the virus in a New York nursing home earlier this year, and why she believes their deaths could have been avoided. Plus commentary by Fox News medical contributor Dr. Nicole Saphier. The Fox News Rundown is a daily news podcast where we take a deeper look at the stories important to you. You can subscribe on your favorite podcast player by going to foxnewspodcast.com.
I'm Jerry Willis.
I'm Steve Ducey.
I'm Shannon Bream, and this is the Fox News Rundown.
Wednesday, October 14th, 2020. I'm Jessica Rosenthal. With less than 3 weeks to go until Election Day, it's not just a campaign that's dominating, but a Supreme Court confirmation hearing focused on abortion, gay marriage, and especially health care.
The president has already signed the executive order, which would provide protections for people with pre-existing conditions, and so that protection will continue.
I'm Dave Anthony. Why are we talking to a meteorologist about the coronavirus? Because Fox's Janice Dean lost 2 in-laws in New York nursing homes and is searching for answers.
I am the weather person, and I've never been a political person. This has nothing to do with politics. This is personal. This is my family. I need to know answers for my family.
And I'm Dr. Nicole Saphier. I've got the final word on the Fox News Rundown.
Campaigning continues with less than 3 weeks to go before Election Day. But another big focus has been the Senate's Supreme Court confirmation hearing for Judge Amy Coney Barrett, dominating the airwaves and social media. While the Democratic nominee for president, Joe Biden, was talking to seniors in Florida and the president was getting ready for a rally in Pennsylvania, Barrett was being sometimes praised and thanked by Republicans on Tuesday and questioned and criticized by Democrats. The focus on Roe versus Wade and gay marriage and, of course, health care.
This guy, our president, he is the one that decided to plop a Supreme Court nomination in the middle of an election when people's health care is on the line with a case before the court on November 10th.
Minnesota Democratic Senator Amy Klobuchar said the president wrote on Twitter that it would be a big win to have a Supreme Court that would strike down the health law a day before he nominated Barrett. Barrett said she couldn't comment on the president's Twitter, but
no one has elicited from me any commitment in a case or even brought up a commitment in the case. I am 100% committed to judicial independence from political pressure. So whatever people's, party platforms may be or campaign promises may be, the reason why judges have life tenure is to insulate them from those pressures.
While it appears Republicans have enough votes to confirm Barrett, others like Rhode Island Democrat Sheldon Whitehouse spoke at length without asking Barrett a single question.
You can tell that their strategy is to basically just make speeches and not actually hear from the nominee, which just actually shows you that the Democrats have no intention of actually giving her a fair hearing.
Marc Lotter is the director of strategic communications for the Trump campaign.
They're just going to come out and they're going to vote no en masse, which is really a shame. You've even seen some liberal commentators on national media say that this is, in normal times she would absolutely sail through in a bipartisan fashion, but because we find ourselves where we are with this Democrat Party that has no interest in working with President Trump on anything, it's going to be a straight party line vote.
Democrats have really expressed their fears about Amy Coney Barrett's possible decision on the ACA in particular, because they note that she wrote in 2017 that in her mind, Chief Justice Roberts, quote, pushed the ACA beyond its plausible meaning. During these hearings, we have heard from the president. He's been tweeting, and he wrote, "We will have health care, which is far better than Obamacare, at a far lower cost, big premium reduction. People with pre-existing conditions will be protected." When will we hear more about a specific health care plan from the president? I know he signed the America First health care plan last month, right? But as his own tweet indicates, there is a lot more to address when it comes to health care.
Well, first and foremost, we have to see obviously how the court rules. There is a case that will be heard after the election in the Supreme Court on the ACA. But ultimately, the president has been saying this from the very beginning. You know, a government program is not the answer. We were lied to by the Obama-Biden administration when they said that you could keep your plan if you wanted to, you could keep your doctor if you wanted to, and we saw premiums skyrocket as employers, as healthcare companies pulled out of the private sector market and competition, and basically the government just stepped in. What you see under the president is a multifaceted approach. You see not only a focus on lowering prescription drug prices, which we have seen the prices drop. You've also seen the president want to expand private options for people to get health insurance. I mean, there's no reason why small businesses shouldn't be able to pool their resources together and try to get the same kind of big buying power that a major company could, which lowers healthcare costs. It lowers the risk for the insurance companies, but that's something that the ACA threw out. And so what we need to do is get those association healthcare plans back into operation. I remember before the ACA, where I was in my home state of Indiana, the Chamber of Commerce used to have what they called chamber care. And so they had a lot of companies that were actually joining the chamber just so they could have, whether they were a small law firm or a small florist or a baker, so they could get access to that and provide health care to their employees. It's something we can get back to. It's one facet of things that we can get back to. But you've already seen the president lay the building blocks out of this, and we just need to continue to build on it and get the ACA out of the way.
How do you protect people with pre-existing conditions if this Supreme Court were to rule that the ACA is unconstitutional? If the Supreme Court says, okay, fine, we agree, it's unconstitutional, goodbye, the fear is millions would lose their health care. What's the answer? What's even the interim answer to those folks?
Well, the president has already signed the executive order, which would provide protections for people with pre-existing conditions, and so that protection will continue whether the ACA is thrown out or not. That protection is absolutely rock solid, and it's something that the president would continue.
Let's talk about COVID for a second. The president's White House doctor has said he is not infectious, that he beat this thing, that he has tested negative on consecutive days. And as we know, he's back on the campaign trail. He has rallies planned for the whole week. How has, in your opinion, how has his own battle with COVID reshaped things, if at all? Because like in Florida on Monday, for example, we didn't see this like big push or insistence on distancing or mask wearing for rally goers.
Well, I mean, we always provide masks and hand sanitizer and things at these rallies, and we encourage people to wear them. We also believe, though, fundamentally, that the American people should be trusted with their own healthcare choices. For folks who would find themselves in a high-risk category where they may have a negative outcome from COVID, we absolutely encourage them to wear a mask, socially distance, and to be honest with you, they should probably not be coming to a rally. But for the rest of us, it's something that we can manage, and that we've got to get to this place where we can be safe, be healthy, protect the vulnerable, but also get back to work, get back to school, get back to life.
Will we ever learn more, Mark, about when he last tested negative before contracting COVID?
That's something that would be handled by the White House and the White House doctors. Obviously that'd be a question to be best addressed by them. It's great to see that the president has actually tested twice negative now. He's back out on the campaign trail. And really, when you think about it, in the course of 1 week, he went from being admitted to the hospital and given these treatments to now fully recovered, fully clear, and fully up to work. I mean, that just shows you the great work that's being done by doctors and nurses and the people in the labs who are developing these great therapeutics that can literally, as the president has said, turn around how he was feeling in 1 day.
I know the president and his supporters dismiss a lot of polling, and they say that most polls oversample Democrats. But we are looking at polling data, right? It's what we have. In swing states, Biden is doing better than the president. In the Real Clear Politics average of polls, I think in Pennsylvania, he's up 7 points, Florida 3, Michigan 7, Wisconsin 6. What's the strategy for the next 3 weeks? Are rallies in swing states, enough to pull back, for example, suburban women, or something else needed other than just, the high intensity rally pitch in all of the swing states?
Well, I mean, the first thing I would say is even an average of bad polls is an average of bad polls. These polls are so methodically flawed that they're actually laughable. Our data, which was right in 2016, and I believe will be right and proven right again in 2020, shows that the president is ahead of where he was in 2016, and that we are basically either ahead or right where we need to be in all of the battleground states that get the president to 270. And then add on the fact that we have the largest grassroots army of volunteers of any presidential campaign in history. We have 2.4 million trained volunteers. That's even more than Barack Obama had in 2012. They're out there hitting the doors. They're making phone calls. They're going to make sure people get out to vote. And there's also a huge enthusiasm amongst Republicans and people who love this president to get out and vote. So we have all of that at our backs, the wind in our sails, so to speak.
Talk to me about the decision to cancel this next debate. Why miss the opportunity to fight it out, right? We know this president is known for liking to duke it out. Why walk? And is it just because it's a virtual debate? Is that the only reason?
Well, I think you'd have to ask the Presidential Debate Commission on why they canceled it. I mean, the fact that they actually went to a virtual debate a week before the debate, when there was still plenty of time for, the president to test negative twice, which he has now since done, to show that he is not going to transmit it, that you could do social distancing and other factors like they did during the vice presidential debate. I mean, they had them 12 feet apart from each other, and yet still the Democrats were insisting on basically, surrounding Kamala Harris in plexiglass. So you could have done a lot of other things, but they didn't choose to negotiate. They just made a decision to make this thing a Zoom call. And this is a town hall. This is not a just two candidates going back and forth with a moderator. This is interacting with the actual voters. And I just don't think that you can get that kind of a town hall feel for what the voters are talking about, for what the candidates are doing when you're sitting in these studios. And then also, we've got a very real concern. I mean, who is going to stand outside the door to Joe Biden's basement and make sure that no one comes in with notes or is putting up words on his teleprompter or whispering the answers in his ear? There are lots of issues with this format that was thrown on with no debate, no discussion amongst the candidates. It literally just got rushed out the door the morning after Vice President Pence took Kamala Harris to school.
Mark, finally, Joe Biden has been saying on the campaign trail that Donald Trump did not learn his lesson from COVID, that he's just doubled down, and uses the word negligence and says that the president's attitude has been reckless and has actually led to COVID deaths, that people are missing from dining room tables because of this president. What do you guys say to that?
I mean, that's a shameful politicization of this pandemic, which is something I have come to expect from the Democrats, who really would rather just score cheap political points than actually do something positive. And, I wish Joe Biden would show half of the outrage against China, where this virus actually came from. But he is a man so beholden and weak to China. He called the president xenophobic and racist for closing down travel from China, which Dr. Fauci said saved lives. He has come up with plans that are nothing more than what the president has already done. I mean, we know Joe Biden is a plagiarist. He's doing it again. And now he's just a political plagiarist because he's just basically saying things the president's already doing and trying to score political points from it. And I think it's disgraceful what he's done.
Marc Lotter with the Trump campaign, thank you so much for your time.
Absolutely. Thank you.
This is Dr. Nicole Saphier with your Fox News commentary coming up.
When the coronavirus outbreak turned into a pandemic, New York's governor stood out as his state was hit the hardest.
We're still in the woods.
For days and days, Andrew Cuomo was on TV with his charts and PowerPoints.
Good news is, great news in my opinion, we can control the spread.
Now, the Democrats' news conferences were covered nearly as much as the White House coronavirus task force.
Older people, vulnerable people, are going to die from this virus. That is going to happen, despite whatever you do.
Over 33,000 people have died in New York. That's more than double any other state. Nearly 6,700 of them died in nursing homes and adult care facilities. And an advisory Governor Cuomo issued in March is still getting a lot of scrutiny. It directed nursing homes must comply with the expedited receipt of residents released from hospitals to address the urgent need for beds for COVID patients. It also, in text underlined, directed no resident should be denied entry into a nursing home because they have the coronavirus or are suspected of having it. Cuomo critics say that led to the spread of COVID in nursing homes, and they claim he undercounts the number by not including those who died after being sent to hospitals.
Both my husband's parents died, and they were in separate elder care facilities.
Janice Dean is Fox's senior meteorologist.
His dad was in a nursing home. He was trying to get better. He had dementia, but he had some health issues. And the plan was we were supposed to have him in the assisted living residence, which was close to our home, where both his parents could be in, a double room. It was a great little arrangement that we had. Both of his parents needed to be looked after. And, just weeks after they were put in their respective elder care facilities, COVID happened. We were on quarantine. We couldn't go see them. We had to rely on, the people that were at the nursing home and the assisted living residence to be our eyes and ears because we couldn't be there. And we get a call on Saturday morning in late March that his dad wasn't feeling well. And this is the first we had heard that he wasn't feeling well.
Okay. Now, did you immediately think coronavirus at the time?
No, we didn't. Listen, it was late in March. We knew that everything was on lockdown. We also knew that that the elderly were more susceptible, but we hadn't heard that his dad wasn't doing well. And we didn't know about the governor's mandate of putting COVID positive patients into nursing homes. Now, I do remember shortly before he got sick, we did get a call from his nursing home saying that he was going to be moved to another floor to allow for additional patients to come into the nursing home. Okay. And so when I look back on that phone call, I believe that was because they were bringing COVID patients into his nursing home.
All right. So his condition then worsened over the week or two?
Well, no. We got the phone call Saturday morning that he wasn't feeling well, and 3 hours later we get the phone call that he's dead.
What?
So we had no lead-up time whatsoever.
Oh,
none.
Wow.
I still don't know.
What a shock.
Yeah. Total shock. And they told us to call a funeral home. And that whole series of events during the time where his dad had died and then we had to tell his mom and then his mom had died is like a nightmare. So for his mom, we were nervous because we didn't want her to get sick. And then she did get sick and we were scared for her to go to the hospital because at the time we didn't know she had COVID. And we were saying, Dee, we don't want you to go to the hospital because we're afraid if you go to the hospital, you're going to get COVID. So, but as it turned out, she had to go and she was diagnosed with COVID when she went to the hospital and she died shortly after that.
When was that? When did she get sick, and how long after your father-in-law died was that?
It was around 2 weeks because I remember it was just before Easter because the last time my husband talked to his mom, she wanted us to get Easter presents for the kids and put her name on it. So she died she got sick shortly after that and died a few days afterwards. But one of the reasons why I am vocal is there's many reasons, obviously, with the governor and the mandate for the COVID patients to go into nursing homes. That was in place for 46 days. But the other reason is we don't have a count of a solid number of deaths that happened in the hospitals, like my mother-in-law. Governor Cuomo is the only governor that will not count the COVID cases that came from the nursing homes or the elder care facilities that died in the hospital. And he refuses to give us those numbers. So when he goes on television and gives these weird updates of percentages of how many people died in nursing homes, he's not being truthful because we don't have the number that had COVID that died in the hospitals, like my mother-in-law. And some of those numbers are double what the reports are right now.
Over the summer, Janice Dean took her concerns to state lawmakers in Albany, New York.
I didn't know I would ever be in this position, but when I started listening to the news reports and not hearing the questions being asked, I felt it was important because I have a platform to start raising those questions on my own.
That is from State Senator James Tedisco's Facebook, but Janice almost didn't get to testify.
They were having hearings in August, and I asked to tell my story, be a witness at these hearings that were held virtually in 2 weeks in August. And I was supposed to be able to testify on one of the weeks, and I was told that I was going to get a proper invite on a Friday, and the testimony would be on the following Monday. I never got the invite. And over the weekend, I texted my friend Councilman Joe Borelli, who was the one who kind of helped orchestrate the testimony. And he said that they didn't want me to testify, that they, the quote was, they were uncomfortable with my story. So
with your story because you're a high-profile person at Fox, or your story because they don't believe you? What?
I think it has to do with where I work. They were uncomfortable because of my affiliation with Fox, and my argument, it doesn't matter. And I am the weather person, and I've never been a political person. This has nothing to do with politics. This is personal. This is my family. I need to know answers for my family. So it got back, I was able to go on Tucker Carlson that night. God bless Tucker. And I was able to, tell the Fox viewers and Tucker my story that I was supposed to testify, and they rescinded the invitation. And then I got a phone call, and they said, we're going to make another makeshift, Zoom session for some of the people that weren't able to testify. But, my story didn't go on the record. It was just sort of a, pat on the head type of thing. We'll let you speak in front of a few Republican lawmakers, although one of the Democratic lawmakers, Assemblyman Kim, did come on and ask a question. And actually, Assemblyman Kim has been very vocal about the nursing home tragedy because he had a loved one that was in a nursing home. So this needs to be bipartisan. I don't care if you're Republican or Democrat. It should affect everyone who has lost a loved one in New York.
What is it you want?
I want an independent, bipartisan investigation into the nursing home tragedy in New York State. I do not want the governor to have the last say. I would like, lawmakers and subpoenas and people who are made to tell the truth to take the witness stand and to find out answers. Why did he have a mandate to place COVID-positive patients into nursing homes for 46 days? He's blamed everybody else for that mandate, including God, Mother Nature, and New York Post. He says it's political. It's Fox News, Michael Goodwin. He's blamed everyone except the person whose name is on the order to place the COVID patients into nursing homes. And I want a real number. I want to know how many people got COVID in nursing homes, including the ones that died in the hospital. I don't want him to have the last say. I would like lawmakers to, both Republican and Democratic lawmakers, to be able to put people on the hot seat and have the questions answered, including the governor. The governor did have an investigation into himself conducted by his administration, and of course it absolved him of all guilt. So, and his book is just it's for grieving families to see him on television and, saying that this is, his leadership skills and how he crushed the curve or whatever he uses, the curve. What does he say? He says not crush the curve, but he flattened the curve.
I know what you mean, flatten the curve, right? Yeah, it was a big deal for a long time.
My relatives are on that curve. You know, my relatives are not just statistics. They're actual people. Their names are Mickey and Dee Newman, and they are New York tough. They were New York tough, like the governor likes to call himself. And certainly they were tougher than the governor is, because he can't take any criticism whatsoever and refuses to take any responsibility for any of his poor decisions.
Now, Governor Cuomo has defended his actions and that March advisory, claiming he was following federal CDC guidelines. And that advisory was amended in May to only release hospital patients to nursing homes if they test negative. But the New York Health Department does say 6,300 people with COVID were released into nursing homes. However, its investigation also found more than 37,000 nursing home workers were infected, and they unknowingly were the cause of the spread of infection. And the governor told Finger Lakes News in the end, they always had hospital capacity, so it never happened where we needed to say to a nursing home, we need you to take this person even though they are COVID positive, and he repeated, it never happened.
Right. I remember seeing that and just thinking to myself, then you completely erased my relatives. It never happened. It did happen. You know, does he need to see the death certificates that say COVID on them? I've said this. Had he at the very beginning said, I made a mistake, exactly what you said. I didn't think we're going to have hospital beds. I had to make room for the overwhelming amount of patients that were coming into hospitals. I didn't know what to do. I thought the nursing homes could take the patients. I made a mistake. Had he done that at the very beginning, we would not be here. We were in the middle of the pandemic. We didn't know how many people were going to come down with this. The numbers were like way off, but he never did. And now to see him being asked the questions finally about the nursing homes, and him like pretending that the question never happened, or, you know, just rambling on about nonsense. The fact that he doesn't answer the question speaks volumes now.
What if he comes out in the future and says, you know what, I wish I hadn't done that, and I'm sorry that happened?
I wish he would. And Dave, I tell you, I don't think he will ever take any kind of responsibility unless we have an independent bipartisan investigation with subpoena power that makes him tell the truth.
Janice Dean, senior meteorologist at Fox News and on a crusade in the nursing home deaths in New York. We thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you, Dave. Appreciate it.
From the Fox News Podcasts Network, download and listen to The Untold Story with Martha McCallum. The host of The Story on Fox News Channel sits down with major newsmakers each week to get their untold story. Subscribe and listen now by going to foxnewspodcasts.com.
It's time for your Fox News commentary.
Dr. Nicole Saphier.
What's on your mind?
Well, October is Breast Cancer Awareness Month, but October 2020 seems different than any other October that I, a breast imaging specialist, have experienced in my lifetime. Rather than seeing the pink insignia of breast cancer awareness signs everywhere, the country continues to be in a state of partial lockdown from the COVID-19 pandemic. So, of course, this is very concerning to me as someone who meets with breast cancer patients in her daily practice. But the irony is, more than 35,000 breast cancer diagnoses can be delayed, and an additional 5,200 women may die in the United States over the next decade because of delayed diagnoses and treatment from the earlier pause in care with lockdown. The COVID-19 pandemic brought many things to a screeching halt, including mammograms and most other non-emergency but necessary health care. While SARS-CoV-2 can pose a risk to your health, cancer does too. So we can't trade one for the other. As our country continues to reopen, healthcare providers nationwide are resuming mammograms and other services. Radiologists and other providers are following CDC and the American College of Radiology guidelines to protect patients as they are reoffering cancer screenings, orthopedic exams, and other previously postponed care. For our part, we have all been smart to play it safe during the pandemic. However, if you are a woman age 40 and older, being cautious now means talking to your doctor about the mammogram you've been putting off or that was delayed by COVID-19. Also, if you are a woman, or a man for that matter, of any age with a change in your body, especially your breasts, please don't put it off. I have diagnosed breast cancer in women ages 18 to 99 and numerous men too. So don't kid yourself that the new lump you are feeling is nothing to worry about. Please let your doctor decide if it warrants further investigation. A doctor's office can pose some risk. However, hospitals and physician offices have stepped up sterilization, spread out appointment times to allow fewer people on site, and taken many other steps to keep safe as possible. So here are some tips to keep in mind when rescheduling a mammogram or any other needed health care. Ask your doctor about COVID safety protocols so you know what to expect when you get there. Discuss your individualized risks and care plan with your provider team, especially if you are elderly, have chronic health issues, or are immunocompromised. Take your temperature and wash your hands before leaving home. Wear a mask to the appointment, wear gloves if necessary, and certainly avoid touching your face, your nose, your eyes, your mouth. Try not to show up too early. Use automatic doors when possible, avoid touching surfaces, and socially distance from others. Limit those who go with you to the appointment. Fewer people on site limits your exposure and that of others. And please allow more time. Offices are spacing out appointments to thoroughly disinfect rooms and equipment. We are all in this together. Visiting the doctor may make you nervous, especially now. I get it. However, not rescheduling your mammogram can allow cancers to remain hidden until they are more advanced and less treatable. Please do not let that happen. Pandemic or not, mammography saves lives. As we continue in Breast Cancer Awareness Month, it's time to get back to care for our health, for ourselves, and our families. This is Dr. Nicole Saphier. I'm a breast imaging specialist at Memorial Sloan Kettering Cancer Center, author of Make America Healthy Again, and Fox News contributor.
You've been listening to the Fox News Rundown. Stay up to date by subscribing to this podcast at foxnewspodcasts.com. And for up-to-the-minute news, go to foxnews.com. It's the Perino and Steyerwalt I'll Tell You What podcast. Dana Perino of The Five and Fox News political editor Chris Steyerwalt dissect the ins and outs of national politics. Subscribe and listen now by going to foxnewspodcasts.com.
Love Fox News? Click the subscribe button to get more of the news and opinion you trust. And click the Fox News Rundown playlist for the latest episodes.